So really our first day mini camp, and again, if you guys have seen the OTAs, there's really a lot of similarity relative to the periods. When people ask me the difference, we've got longer meeting time, a little bit longer on the field, and it's mandatory, but it's the same type of tempo that we've been running. Any questions?
Do you have, when you get a guy who hasn't been around a lot?
Yeah, so we were smart, and look, I know we did some extra work on field 3. It's great having him out here. He's in good shape, but you don't want to just throw him in there, and so we'll be smart about that.
Sean, I'm curious. In terms of the quarterback competition, I was wondering, do you already have a set date in mind when you want to know?
No, fair question. I said this relative to this time of the year, and it's not just a quarterback, but obviously you're watching that position. So every day we're rolling them different with the 1s, 2s, and 3s, but we're kind of doing the same thing with a lot of the other position groups. I just feel like this is the time of the year to do that. And I would say I have an end date that would be the week before the first game, but I don't have a set date.
Does the relative lack of experience in the quarterback particularly, do you want to make a decision earlier than that if you can, so that a guy gets reps in?
Yeah, but I think most importantly is the right decision, though. So, yeah.
Greg at tight end, you had thought maybe it wasn't the case where we were going to have to wait till training camp to see him, but he's still not out there.
Yeah, and look, we're going to see where he's at tomorrow. He's doing really well. So we have these meetings. We go through the roster. So we'll be smart in our approach, and then I think there's a couple guys that we have a chance of maybe seeing more work from tomorrow than today.
Adam Troutman, what's going on with him? He's on the sideline today.
Just being smart with his reps, and he had core muscle symptoms, which is basically a strain. He didn't need surgery, so that's the good news. Nothing significant, though.
Randy Gregory, it normally is a private affair, but in the court documents and everything, that he wanted to use THC for medicinal and was prescribed. How did you handle that? And
I don't
comment on him.
No, listen. So I'm aware of what was written in the lawsuit, but it was nothing that I had to deal with directly at all. I think it's more, and even talking with his agent, I think it's more of a league issue than necessarily a Broncos issue. But nonetheless, there was nothing that I ever dealt with.
Tim Patrick had a nice day today. We haven't seen
Pardon?
Tim Patrick had a nice day. We haven't seen him out here really for 2 years. What does it make you want to bring him back that you learned about him even when he wasn't?
Just those intangibles, I do know and obviously have seen healthy tape. Granted, I wasn't here, but so I kind of have an idea or a vision for the player, and then all the other things that he brings relative to his competitiveness, his versatility. He's a great teammate, and I think he's an important part of the locker room. And so it's good to see him getting work, and we'll be smart with that.
Hey, Sean, Nick Bonito took a kind of a big jump in year 2 in terms of the pass rush production. What was sort of the kind of things that you told him, hey, this is what we want to see from you now today?
Well, I think to his defense, he had more opportunities, relative to the depth, in his second year, and I think that'll continue to trend that way. So, it's that growth we always talk about from year 1 to year 2, but I think he had more playing time snaps too.
Bradley Moss competing at cornerback, he had a nice play today.
Yeah, saw it.
What have you seen from him this offseason?
Well, he's smart. I'd say you feel his length at corner. When I say that, just even on that play, it's a tougher play to make if you're a shorter corner. So you feel his length. He's got real good transitional skills, and I think he's smart. So he's picking up the technique, and he's got versatility outside in. But we've got good competition there.
With Moss, he missed part of the season.
Say it again?
He missed before the season training camp last year.
Yeah.
Having these off-season reps, how valuable is that for him?
I think.
Look,
I think it's it's valuable for all of them. I said this to him even when we brought everyone up. The goal here is, we install, call it the first 7 installs or 8, and then we start again today, back to 1, 2, 3. In training camp, we start again. And the goal is to put our best foot forward when we get to training camp. So there's certain positions that obviously further away from the ball, it's a little easier to do your job, and it's much more challenging for the inside guys.
Can you elaborate some more on the competition to replace Josie Jules, and mostly between Barton and Josh Griffin?
Yeah, I think, all of those guys. We've got a young guy, from Fresno, who's all 3 of those guys right now are competing at Mike. We're rotating their reps much the same way at quarterback, and we'll continue to do that.
How about Jared Stidham? You've been asked a lot about the 2 new quarterbacks.
He's doing well. I mean, clearly, within the framework of what we're doing, he's much further along than, in year 1 and in the transition. I'd say he's looked real sharp during this offseason program. Real decisive, and I think the leadership, he's able to provide there, and there's good competition.
When it does come time to actually pick the quarterback.
Here we go again.
I know.
So I don't have a date.
No, but
I have a gut.
Is it purely utilitarian, whoever gives you the best chance to win on September 8th in Seattle, or do you consider a larger vision, and how do you weigh those two?
Yeah, fair question. I still think, we always talk about the locker room and the players in the locker room, and so I think when we get into training camp and we get into the preseason games, I think oftentimes the decisions take care of themselves, but the object is to win. And I understand the question relative to, but in our league, it's year to year, and so, man, we're competing to win this year. And we're going to make the right decision relative to who gives us that opportunity. And I think not only a quarterback, the thing I see different in this offseason is in the secondary, at the receiver group, at the line. There's a lot of competition for jobs and playing time, and that's encouraging. And I think you guys who followed and watched these a year ago, maybe you see something that's different. Certainly, I feel like it's been different.
Sean, when you're young-ish at quarterback, how important are guys like Cortland and Tim, veterans who know that what you want?
Yeah, I think having that balance of experience is important. And yet, when you look at Jared and where he's at relative to his career, and you look at the 2 younger guys, I mean, those guys have played a lot of football. But nonetheless, experience is something that, look, if you don't have it, you got to get it. And then obviously, having guys that have been in the trenches, they understand the game, I think it helps a lot. When we evaluate players, we're constantly talking about, do they know what to do? And that's the first part of the evaluation. It's hard to play fast if you're not familiar with the assignment. So I think it's helpful.
Coach, going back to young guys, talk about last year at practice squad. Devin Key was a guy who was in the film room quite a bit.
Yeah.
He's doing a little bit more.
Sure is. Yeah, look, he's doing well. Obviously, he's moving around well. Special teams is going to be important for a group of these players. He'd be one of them. And I think that, he's put together some good days. And so, again, we don't get to see the tackling. We don't get to see certain elements of the game, but these reps for young guys like him are important.
So, Damari Mathis was your starter to begin last year. Gets benched for Fabian. Sometimes it's hard for a young player to come back from that. What have you seen from him this offseason? It seems like he's got some of his confidence.
Yeah, look, we got great competition there, and he played well 2 years ago, as a rookie. So these guys understand it at corner. It's a tough position. It's probably one of the harder positions, in sport. And you've got to have a short memory, and you got to have some mental fortitude. I think he has that grit, and I really like where he's at weight-wise. I think he's moving well. I know he's trained quite a bit this offseason, got his weight down. He's impressed, here during this period.
You talked about what the additions on the defensive line bring sort of themselves. How much can they also help, Zach and DJ, just in terms of sort of being more fortified?
Look, I think so. I mean, we bring in the end. It's all a puzzle relative to how we play these guys. And so when you have depth and you have flexibility where they can play, we know kind of where we'd like to play Zach, where we'd like to play DJ. And yet, if you're thin, sometimes you don't have that luxury. And so, I like where the numbers are there. And we've got some experience that we brought in there, both at the end and the tackle position.
Sean, with a roster like this, and especially a QB room like this, what has it been like for you personally, professionally, to kind of go through something that you haven't really had a chance to do? There's a new energy to it, a new challenge. I think really, it's that challenge of working with a young team, not just at quarterback, but I think that's the one thing that I notice, at least watching. I feel the competition, and I think it's part of what makes this job exciting, because it is very competitive, and it's meeting the challenge and giving these guys the best plan, the best opportunity. So I look forward to training camp and in the start of the season. Is there more like a personal investment for you, and that it's your second year here, you've had a stake in each of these quarterbacks who are in this competition?
Yeah, I think it's more team driven. I think we all when we all go off into the pasture, we're measured with our wins. Ultimately, we're measured with divisions, playoffs, Super Bowls, and those are still very much things that drive you. When you've tasted that a number of different times, and it's whatever you think it's like 1,000 times better. And so, I can even recall some of the tough championship game losses, or playoff losses, also the wins, but you're just as excited really for the players that haven't experienced not only postseason, but winning a Super Bowl. And it's like nothing else.
When you evaluate a young player compared with an experienced player, is it almost like on a curve for the young player, knowing that they have a different level of background coming in, they haven't seen this before?
Yeah, I think it's all dependent on the two players we're talking about, and look, a lot of times there's certain positions like offensive line or quarterback where there's one right guard, but in a lot of cases there's packages where both players are going to factor in if they're both going to help us. So I think it's a case-by-case basis.
Do you have a separate compartment of a personal chip on your shoulder in addition to, like, you're in the NFL, you want to win every game, probably feels like your life's on the line, but you got, national stuff being said about the team and coaching lists. Like, do you have a separate compartment for, like, a middle finger, like a personal middle finger?
No, I think that I have two middle fingers. I've gotten better with age not using them. And I think it's more, and I would say this has changed for me. It's more inward focused relative to our own team and what we're doing relative to, as you get older in this, you don't waste the calories on certain things that I might have, back in 06, 7, 8.
I don't play a lot of video games, but you got X amount of battery life and energy, and you try to use it where you think it's best going to help the team, and so you learn over time to not spend as much on the things you can't control, or certainly lists, or if that concerned me, we wouldn't have drafted Bo Nix, where we selected him. If I was paying attention to that. And so that's that NFL train that no one knows who's driving, and you got to pay attention to it, but you just don't want to hop on it, or you just start making decisions, and we still don't know who's driving it. It's just going. And so really paying attention to your gut, your experience, and what you're seeing. Those are the things that drive me now.
Sean, with Quinn, obviously he's played well early in his career, but what did you see from him sort of up close and personal first year golf?
I thought he had a really good year. I remember when he came out, and then when a player goes to the AFC, maybe you lose track a little bit, but I thought he played exceptionally well. Certainly he's a powerful, sticky run blocker. He does a lot of things extremely well. I think he loves it. He loves the process, which is half the battle. And so, man, I love that he's our right guard.
How much can he and Ben help if you do have a young center, so that's a point, sort of help?
Yeah, well, look, the good news for the center most of the time is he's working with one of those two players. There's times where he's isolated, but certainly the experience of those two players help a lot.
How do you see Alex Singleton perhaps emerging as even more of a leader this year? He's your tackling machine on defense, obviously.
Yeah, look, he'll wear the green dot more than likely, and he'll have a leadership role. He's got a way about him. He too, I think, likes the process. He's experienced. He's arrived here the hard way, and to his credit, a guy like him has earned everything he's gotten, and so definitely you feel his leadership.